When I was home from college during Christmas one time, I rediscovered these. A set of juggling balls I'd won in a middle school band fundraiser. This one's all duct taped together and it's the only one remaining. It was a very, very trying time, and it takes a lot of patience to learn how to juggle. So I'm going to go over a few things I've learned about juggling and how it helps you in life. For starters, if you wanted to learn how to juggle, how many balls do you think you should start with?
2, 1.
One, yeah, right. A lot of people start with 2 and I'll show you in a little bit. But the number one thing you want to learn how to do is throw a simple, just right past your eyes, back and forth. Once you can do this, then we'll add the second ball. So a lot of times when people pick 2 balls up, they start doing this, which is wrong. You want to keep them going the same distance, same pattern through the center. So when you go to add that third one, then you just work on keeping those throws the same height. And one way that people will try to make sure that their throws are being consistent is you don't catch them. And they should fall right below your hands. So the people in the front, if you want to tell people in the back that was perfect.
That was pretty
Perfect.
All right, good.
Sounds good from here.
Yeah. So then having that consistent throw back and forth is what you want to be able to have. And as you work on your the consistency and just keep on doing it, then you have more control of your za, which was our term for that space that all of your stuff is encompassing. So then you can throw one higher or lower, go a little faster, and you know how to adjust appropriately. That simple throw right through the middle is what you want to burn into what we call the alpha subconscious neural patterns, which are the little flashes of light you see when you close your eyes. And then from here, you can throw one over the top and keep it going that way. Otherwise, this is called the cascade. The reverse cascade would be as if you throw them all into the middle instead of up through the middle. If you want to move on to 4, what you're actually doing is you're doing 2 in one hand and 2 in the other at the same time. There are different things you can do to cross them, but strangely enough, there's actually a lot of math involved with juggling, with having odd numbers of balls with even numbers of hands. There's actually a whole branch of juggling dedicated to the mathematics of it, called site swap, which basically you write down a string of numbers with between 0 and probably 7, 9, something like that, and it's basically that number dictates what you would be doing if you were juggling that number of balls. For example, a 0 is an empty hand. A 1 would just be holding a ball. 2 would be straight up in the air because that's how you juggle 2. A 3 would be that pattern that you have to the other side. And a 4 is a little bit higher, and so on and so forth, basically straight up, across, and you get higher as you go. And as you add all those numbers up, they should average out to the number of balls that you have. So you can't just put any string of numbers, but as long as they average out to the number of balls that you're using, it should work. I never got into it. That was more thinking outside of college than I wanted to do. Next is 5, which is pretty similar to 3. I never got very good at it, but you still want to throw them all up through the middle. That was actually pretty good. Throw them back up through the middle. They say like learning how to juggle on a scale of 1 to 10 is about a 3, learning how to juggle 4 is about a 6, and learning how to juggle 5 is a 34. So it takes a little bit to control all 5 in the air. Another way to do more with juggling is after you've learned a few things about balls, you can get the club. Now, for the sake of not hitting anything, these take up a little more space. I only brought the one to show. But same thing applies. You want to learn how to just simply throw it back and forth between your hands, burn that into your alpha neurotic self-consciousness, whatever I said before. And so that you can have these going back and forth very easily. With clubs, it's also more fun to pass clubs than it is to pass balls. So when you're working with another person, you can pass clubs, and there's a few more variables with the spin, but actually, when you're throwing them, the way that the handle slaps into your hand, it's pretty easy to throw them back and forth with another person. One of my favorite patterns was I'd be passing to somebody, and there'd be somebody right in front of me passing to somebody on the other side of me. And so as I throw this club past that person's head, I'm going to be receiving the club from the other person down there. And inversely, as that person's going to pass past my head, that person's club is going to go past my head on this side. So you don't want to try to get out of the way of this one, because the one that you can't see is coming right at you. Once you have pretty good club technique, we'll move on to other things. So we don't always have demonstrations, but when we do, we light things on fire. So this is a torch. Same concept as a club. You can throw it, and it spins. It's very well balanced. You can catch it pretty easily, pass it with others. The one thing with clubs or torches is when do they look best? Lit, and at night. And so if I were holding this in the dark, what do you see? The flame. What do you want to catch?
Ooh, the handle.
Not the flame. So that's the part that gets tricky as you're trying to learn how to juggle torches in the dark, is you want to catch the end that you can't see. And I bet you're wondering if I've ever burned myself. And yes, all the time. I mean, but luckily this stuff doesn't burn that hot. Like tiki oil doesn't burn that hot. But this part is metal, and it gets as hot as metal gets when you light it on fire for a few minutes. But if you catch them and drop them right away, you generally don't get hurt. But yeah, I've singed a whole bunch of hair and stuff, so don't wear synthetic fibers when you juggle fire. Same thing applies with this, another flammable object called a poi. So this one you put on your fingers. Generally you'll use to swing them around, light them on fire. Some of these things, they make the non-flammable versions, but I don't really use those. It's got a nice bendable cable for when I get into the accidental wrapping up my wrist and unwrapping them. It comes apart pretty easily that way. With clubs, they spin pretty well. They're designed to have a center of rotation right in the middle, so it's very easy to figure out how it's going to spin. You can generally pick up anything and throw it in the air and catch it. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is just to walk around and pick stuff up and throw it in the air and catch it. It gets trickier, obviously, when you try to spin it in the air while you're doing it. And once you figure out the center of rotation, then you can move on to other things. And you can generally work on juggling just about anything that you want to. So, once you figure out the center of rotation, figure out how heavy something is, you can juggle just about anything. Mr.